The first time I heard the noise inside the wall, I thought it was just pipes. The apartment building was old, probably built sometime in the 1960s, and the walls were thin enough that you could hear neighbors coughing or walking around at night. So when I heard a soft scratching sound behind the wall near my bed, I didn't think much of it. It sounded like something lightly moving through the drywall, maybe a mouse, maybe the plumbing expanding from the heat. It only lasted a few seconds and then it stopped. The next night it happened again. This time the sound lasted longer. It wasn't random either. It sounded slow and deliberate, like something dragging lightly across the inside of the wall. I turned off the TV and listened carefully. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. I knocked on the wall a few times to scare whatever it was away. The sound immediately stopped. That should have been the end of it. But the strange part was what happened the next night. Around 2 a.m, I woke up suddenly. The apartment was completely dark and quiet, but I could hear something moving again inside the wall next to my bed. This time it wasn't scratching. It sounded heavier, like something shifting its weight. I held my breath and listened closely. Then I heard something that made my stomach drop. A slow knock. Not on the wall. Inside the wall. 3 soft taps. Then silence. I sat up in bed staring at the drywall, trying to convince myself it was just the building settling. But then it happened again. 3 more knocks. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, shining it across the wall like that would somehow reveal what was inside it. Of course, there was nothing to see, just the same blank white drywall. I stayed awake for almost an hour listening, but eventually the sound stopped. The next morning I checked the wall carefully. There were no holes, no cracks, nothing unusual at all. But something about the sounds didn't feel like an animal anymore. A few days passed and the noises stopped completely. I almost forgot about it until one evening when I got home from work and noticed something strange in the hallway. The small vent near the floor outside my bedroom was slightly open. I was sure it had always been screwed shut before. I crouched down and looked inside, shining my phone light through the metal slats. At first I couldn't see anything except darkness. Then I noticed something deep inside the vent. It looked like a small piece of fabric caught on the metal edge. Dark gray, almost black. It didn't look like insulation or anything from inside the wall. It looked like clothing. That was the moment I felt a cold wave of panic move through me. Because if that fabric was clothing, it meant something much worse than mice could be living inside the walls. That night I couldn't sleep at all. I kept staring at the wall next to my bed, waiting for the noises to come back. Around 3 a.m, I finally heard it again. A slow, shifting sound inside the wall, like something carefully crawling through a narrow space. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my chest. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. The noise slowly moved across the wall until it stopped right behind the headboard of my bed. Then everything went silent. For a few seconds I thought maybe it had moved away again, but then I heard breathing, very faint, but definitely breathing, coming from inside the wall just a few inches away from my head. The next morning I called the building manager and told him everything. At first, he didn't believe me. He assumed it was rodents or maybe raccoons in the walls. But when maintenance finally opened part of the drywall later that afternoon, the entire situation became much worse. Inside the wall cavity was a narrow maintenance gap that ran between several apartments. And inside that space, they found something that shouldn't have been there: a thin mattress, empty food wrappers, a flashlight, and pieces of clothing. Someone had been living inside the walls of the building, watching the apartments through vents and small openings. The police searched the entire crawl space, but whoever had been staying there was already gone. They never found the person responsible. I moved out 2 days later. But sometimes I still think about those nights. Because if they found the mattress and the food, that means whoever was living inside the walls had been there for a long time, long enough to learn exactly when I was asleep